check if it's running. It's running, so you can check it later. So if you want to check the recording of the session, so you can easily find it by the date. So in future you want to check it, and yeah, so the corresponding agenda can be found under session planning here in this course, so you can easily uh, find a match between the agenda and the date of the session, and then you can find the corresponding session to watch if you need. So, as for the planning, we are at 16 now. So I guess, yeah, we can start. So hello everyone, welcome to today's session, and the plan for today is that, so yeah, as you remember for the end of the previous session, so I sent you the first, actually it's called practical assignment. In fact, that's most of the preparation of your local machines, of your computers, to be ready to start working with .NET. Join, okay. And yeah, so after the setup is done from here, you will be ready to work with .NET. Yeah, of course, we will need some more things, so that's not all the things we need in our course. There will be more things, definitely more things during start to setup, definitely it will be, and even during our next session, I guess, as well, there will be something more to install. A moment. So let me double check one thing. Yeah, we'll start using Git today. And yeah, actually for Git, I forgot to touch the practical for Git. Yeah, there are two presentations at the moment. Let me also touch the practical materials for Git. Yeah, this one. We'll also need it, maybe not today, but during this week. Definitely, because we work with Git, and this will be needed. Okay, so I also touched it. So yeah, so for those who, I see that most of you already completed or started setting up your local machines. From this practical assignment, I see that you have the discussion in the Discord chat, so it's really nice that you also help each other. So that's really good, and also it's really good that you search something in Google, because that's the usual practice where when everyone searches for the things, for the materials, for the information in Google. It's yeah, that's what junior developers do, and that's also what seniors always do as well. Yeah, so everyone Googles the stuff, and that's absolutely fine. And so basically, you cannot know more than Google. It's not possible, of course. So the advantage for you will be that you know how to search and where to search, and how to use all the materials you find in Google. So that's also, I'd say, not the talent, but the experience you get, and the experience you use in IT, and it's really important for all the levels of the programmers, and not only programmers, for all IT employees. Okay, so for this assignment we can now go through. I will also comment some things. Yeah, first of all, again, small remark, and I guess you all noticed that we all have different computers, we all have different setup on our computers, and that's why uh, the setup, the issues may be different for all the computers, especially if we use different operating systems. Like if you have Mac or something else, then there may be some different issues and also some different things to needed to be installed. But maybe about differences. About the differences for other systems, yeah, maybe. So there was the one question from Wayne, where to get the link for C# on Mac OS. I guess maybe I can quickly search it. Maybe let's do it after session for Wayne, because so today you will not need to program a lot. Yeah, so that will be just the overview of setup. Okay, so regarding the assignment, so the first steps were there are just explanation steps. So you could navigate to this tool of C# and then this will introduce you to the C# in general. Then so the next step was that you set up to download Visual Studio Code. So that was the step. Yeah. So you had to download Visual Studio Code on your computer. I hope that was quite straightforward and easy. And after that, once the Visual Studio Code is installed, so you can see it on the Open It, and you can see Visual Studio Code installed on your computer. You can use Visual Studio Code practically for almost all the programming languages, all the environments, not all, but most of the environments where you need to write some code, maybe not only the code, also some kind of editor of XML files, JSON files, and many other different files. You can use Visual Studio Code. It's quite a simple tool comparing to other IDEs, and we will see why. So that's about Visual Studio Code, and the first task was to create our first .NET project using Visual Studio Code. And so we can do it now. So yeah, for Visual Studio Code, maybe small remarks here. It's, as most of them, so this is used as the editor. So here we using Visual Studio Code, we can edit the files, and this is the IDE for programming. Then mostly it is used to edit some kind of programming, some kind of codes, programming codes. And yeah, maybe small remarks about what we can do here. Of course, we have the file section. Here we can create new files. Also in the window, if you want to work with multiple things, like maybe multiple projects as well, then you can open a new window and you will have two Visual Studio windows, and then you can proceed with different projects. Yeah, so also one more thing, help window. That's quite, let's say, quite interesting thing. So first we can open keyboard shortcut reference, so you can navigate, and here you will see all the main shortcuts you can use in Visual Studio Code. We will use some of them, and I will also let you know which shortcuts are, say, most important in basically programming in general, not only in C#. And we also have terminal. We'll use terminal, and maybe let's start with the project. And I will also explain some really important things about terminal and console in general. So first of all, we can start a new project. For navigate to the folder, we'll use basically for all the projects we need to have the folder. So that's the place where all our files will be stored for the exact project. And when we work with the projects in Visual Studio Code, then we open the folder, and this folder will be considered as the root folder of our project, and we'll see only the files from this particular folder, and we'll work with them. So let's go here, and here I will create first the first project in the first folder, and we'll call this Hello World. So usually, maybe if you work with other programming languages, then we always start with Hello World applications in all the programming environments. So then I create a folder, and I can select this folder, and I will work with this folder only. And so here will be the folder, and all the files will come from here. Right, so that was the first step, and then the next step is the terminal. So before we start working with the terminal, I would like to, first of all, what is the terminal? I guess we can start with the terminal from here. First, there are two options how we can open it. We can go to View and press Terminal, or we can simply create new terminal from here. One more thing, you may see some notifications come in Visual Studio Code. So if you need something to install or update, it's usually better to do it. So it gives you some suggestions what you may need to install. So you can briefly, if there are some extensions you need, so you can briefly accept it and install if needed. So and now we have terminal. Almost all the IDEs, maybe all the IDEs, you have the console, have the terminals, and basically this is the same if you open the terminal here. So, for example, I can press CMD in my Windows search, and then command prompt, or also basically that's the console. We call it console or terminal, and this will be the same. There's also option to use PowerShell. Maybe that's, I would say, more advanced console, but for us it should be enough to use simple terminal, simple console. And so this is not the main thing, but quite a useful useful tool for, I would say, for all the or most of the programming environments. And what do we see here? So first of all, maybe we can see some. Basically, this is the same. It doesn't matter if I work here or if I work here. Maybe we can start working here and then we'll switch here. There's no difference. It's the same. All the commands we write here, they should all be available here as well. And first of all, what we see here, we see the folder. We see the folder and the path. What does it mean? It means that all the commands I execute in terminal from here this will all be not waste, but they will all we currently are located in this folder. Yeah, it means that all the commands we execute inside this folder. And yeah, what are the commands? There are lots of commands stored in system and can be executed. Maybe first of all, the first command, you don't need to recognize them all, you don't need to memorize them all. So usually you can simply Google if you need some kind of command, but the main commands I always use, and maybe it's not possible to not use it, is the command cd. So the command cd means change directory. So if currently I'm located in this folder, that's C users, then my user folder. So that is, let me open this folder. So one moment. Yeah, so this is my folder I'm currently located in. Yeah, using cd I can change directory. So for example, if we move to this directory, so that's practical. Oh, hold on, that was a mistake. I wanted to create a different folder, so maybe let's change this. Not under practical assignments, we will delete it. Oh no, I will wait to delete it because it's already open now. Yeah, under practical it should be. Sorry, okay. I will use this folder for this purpose. So I will open it here, and now I can also delete the folder from here because this is a different folder. Yeah, so let's now again open the terminal here, and so now yeah, terminal's here, and so now I can just change directory. Basically, what happens? How the terminal works? So let's paste the paths we need to provide to change the directory. We need to provide the path to the folder. So that's the path to the folder. I open the corresponding folder, then I can copy the address as text. And so that's double click, copy address as text, and I paste it here. And then after that, now I'm located under this hello world directory, and from this point, command line will work the same if I'm here, from here, and from here. Yeah, basically what just happened, I executed command cd. So that's the command. That's the executable command I can execute inside from every folder. And then what happens? So the first of all, it's space sensitive. So all the spaces, maybe except the folder name, will be considered, they're important. They're important, and basically what do they mean? First of all, we have the first, always for all the folders, the first thing will be the command, the executable command. Then what comes after it, so we separate using the space, and then we have the arguments. Yeah, so in this case, so just a small example, if I write cd, so that's the executable command, which changes to the directory. Then the second will be the argument, so that's the argument 1, which will be used by this command, then this will be argument 2, and so on. Yeah. And all the arguments I pass to the command will be separated by space. Yeah, so that's the small. We'll use it more times in future. That's just the first explanation. And now we are located under this folder, and we can proceed. So now maybe I can close it because we can simply work from here. And so the first command we have here is .NET. And yeah, so .NET, that's also the executable command. That's also executable command. So we can So at this point again, what happens? I have this .NET as the command, and then I have two arguments. Argument new, I have space, second argument passed to this executable command, this console. And now the project is generated, and we can see we have this hello world class generated here. We'll talk about the classes a little bit later, what the classes are. So just the most simple explanation would be that that's the place where the code, that classes are the places where the code is stored, and it can also be executed from them. So now we have this code, and we have this project, where we have this. So in this case, hello world CS project. That's the setup. And we maybe don't really need to care about it at this point. But here we have the executable class. We can execute it, and the simplest way to execute it would be that we call .NET run. .NET run. And now this will print as hello world. And basically what we can see here, first we have using. You will almost always see this part, so it means that you use system commands, basically. Then we have namespace, that's the identifier of this current class. In this case, that's the identifier which belongs to the folder, and usually the namespace will come from the folder name. So it will usually be the same as the folder name, and then we have the name of the class. So the name of the class should be the same as the name of the file. If we type something more, then okay, in this case this will work, but normally it should be the name of the file. And then we have the static void main. So that's actually the method. We will talk about what are the methods a little bit later, but so if you see static void main in C#, that means that this is the running place, the place from where we start running our program. And it will obviously be called static void main, and what it has the arguments, and this is what I said. For the same as for all the executable programs, we can pass the arguments. And in this case, for our program, what we run in here, we can pass the arguments as well. So in theory, that would be that we do it this way. So then I say argument 1 and argument 2. In this case, this will print just hello world because we do not have any other commands. But what happens in fact, this program what we have here, it received these two arguments from here. I will later tell you how to use them. But in fact, at this point, the program received our two arguments, and they can be used inside. And so here it happens just a simple thing. We tell console, this is our console, to write hello world, and hello world is printed now. Okay, so that's the first thing, and the next thing is that you could install Mono framework. I just noticed that there is the comment sent in, Christine sent in Google Meet. Maybe just for you, please send the comments under general section in our Discord chat and here, because I usually check this one. Otherwise, for me, that will be quite complicated to search for the questions different sources. So if we send the questions under general, but yeah, for this question I will check it now in Google Meet. So what should be installed more to proceed with this this thing as many? So that's about, I guess that's about Mono. Yeah, now we'll talk about. Or you mean the .NET command or MCS command?
I mean the last command which you just showed us, the .NET command.
.NET.
Yeah.
Okay. So .NET command, that comes when you install, actually to install .NET. .NET itself on your computer. I guess that was suggested by Visual Studio Code. Yes, no, that's the documentation. Yes, that should be pre-installed. Maybe moments. Yeah, I guess for me that was pre-installed directly, but by default. But for you, maybe try this one again. I will share the link. Maybe try to install from, because for me that was installed directly. And so try this one. So maybe if you have more issues with, if you still have this issue, then maybe we will I will contact you after this session, and so maybe tomorrow as well. Let's see, and then we can proceed, and I will help you install it, because I guess for me that was installed by default. But okay, but don't worry. So you'll have time to solve this issue. Nothing urgent for now. Yeah. So that's the first option, and the second option would be that we use Mono framework. And Mono framework, that's the network, that's the framework we can use for .NET, and you can see the link here. That's for Mono project. You could go here, and then from here you could download Mono project. I guess you could use 32 bits. There is no much difference. I used 64 bits, and then I also downloaded GTK. So after you install this, there is one thing, yeah, that was the issue for some of you, that you had to add system environment variables yourself. Sometimes it is used by default, and yeah, also maybe about the question asked by Christine is that sometimes you may see this issue that .NET command is not recognized because it's not set up in your path. And basically, what is this thing? And yeah, I explained it a little bit in Discord, in our Discord chat, in our Discord channel, is what the environment variables are. This is, I would say, if you work with console and if you use different, maybe I would say, different things, different environments. Like in this case, we use .NET. For example, if you use maybe just something else, yeah, maybe if you usually work with console, you use some external commands, you download some frameworks, some environments, yeah, that would be the easiest to say. Some environments from where you execute the commands in command line, then for this purpose, sometimes you need to set up your environment variables. And what does it mean? It means that so the setup may be different. Usually, when you download something, you will see the guide how you need to set up your system, your environment variables. But basically, the easiest, not easiest, but the most simple explanation would be that here is the place from where you can provide the commands which will be visible from the terminal. Like in this case, we have .NET. And what you can see here, I have this folder provided under it. And you can go here, you can go to paths. So that's the paths, and from here you can see my folders, which are provided here. And inside these folders, I have the commands. I have the executable commands which I can use in terminal or in command line. And so, for example, we have this .NET. I can go to browser. I can search for it. So maybe you can see program files.net. I can navigate to this folder. To see program files. And I have .NET here. Yeah, so that's .NET. .NET installed on my computer, and I have this .NET executable. Yeah. So that's .NET exe. So we can simply say that's .NET, and this is the command, and this is not the command. This is the executable file, which is actually executed when we provide this .NET command here. Yeah. So when we say when we write .NET, then this command is executed. And basically how it works, I provide the folder from here, and then I have all the commands which are here, then we can use them in command line. And the same for Mono. So once you install Mono, you have this Mono folder. So in my case, that's again program files Mono. For your case, that's maybe somewhere else. Again, it depends where you install it. So I have this Mono. I go here, and then I have this bin folder. And here I have executables. Again, it's not mandatory that the executable is AXE. I guess it can only be BAT or maybe something else. I'm not really sure for now, but the concept is, I don't know, that's almost, I guess there should be, it can be something else than EXE, I guess, or maybe not, I'm not really sure, but mostly we look at EXE files, and in my case that's again the bin folder, and we use two commands. That's MCS, that's the command which compiles the class, and Mono, which actually executes our C# compiled executable program. So maybe I can close it for now. And here I have this MCS. This one, yeah, that's not executable. I guess, yeah, that's what I said. It can also be just a simple file or BAT. I'm not really sure what does it use, but in our case that's not important. And so we have this MCS, that's compiler, and we have this Mono, which is here. So that is used when we type Mono command here. Yeah, so and now we can do it. So in this case we have this program CS. Yeah, I'm not sure why here it's written that it should be hello world CS class. If you want, we can create this class. So yeah, to create new file, you can simply, to create new class if you want, you can simply create new file, and then say hello world.cs. And so now I created the file, and I need to provide the, yeah, so what's the problem now? Now I cannot use class program because it would be duplicated. Yeah, so I cannot have two same classes because I have the class program here and now I have the class program here. That's correct. I should use different class. And let's use hello world class, for example. Yeah, so now I can compile this class, the hello world CS. So now I compile this class, and so now the executable file is generated. So after that I can use mono hello world.exe, and now this class is executed. So that's about this part. If you have any questions, please let me know. And now we can move to the second one. It's quite similar, but in this case we want to use .NET Run. We will do it manually. So I will use I will open a new folder and I will create my manual project. So it will be my first project folder. I select this folder, and from here I need to create my first class.cs. And yeah, maybe for those who does not know, basically we use extension of the file to recognize what's the type of the file, and for C# that's CS. So now we have this now we have this C# file, and now we can copy paste the code from here. And yeah, maybe a little bit later, but this would be quite important. Yeah, maybe maybe let's start with the shortcuts also. We usually, so maybe I guess for all the programming languages, when you write the code, you should always save your code. I mean, every time you write the code, maybe you typed one line of code, then you should press Ctrl S. That means save. Ctrl S. I guess that's really the main shortcut used in all the programming languages. So that's what you need to use. Yeah. So once you press Ctrl S, then the file will be saved. That's the first, I would say, the main shortcut you'll need to know. So yeah, at this point, I created the class, and then I can again run the terminal. And first of all, I will compile the class. Yeah, I can write the questions if you want. So then I will compile the class. Again, executables here, and I can execute this program. And now this is printed. And so now we can do some work around here. Yeah, first of all, as said here, use Ctrl S. And yeah, for macOS that would be Command S. So that's important. And yeah, in this case, we simply developed the first program from scratch. Also, we can play around and print something else. As we can see here, we printed this text. Of course, we can change this text, and then it will be different. So maybe we can type something like different text. But at this point, if you execute again this mono first class, this will be the same as before. Why? Because we only changed this file. We have not compiled it yet. Yeah, so it still uses the previous compiled class. And that's why, again, we need to compile it once again. So, and at this point, this executable file will use new our new class, with the new, not our new class, but our new program. Yeah, it's also okay. Yeah, that's a nice question from Eva. It's okay to turn on autosave instead of using the shortcuts. Yes, but so we all the programmers, we usually, at least I don't usually trust autosave, and for me, just like it's phobia, then the program is not safe, then I always that's the habit for me. I always use Control S, and even in browser, when I write something in browser, so sometimes I have this habit that I accidentally press Control S, so because that's the phobia. I need to save everything, and just to make my to be sure that my program is saved, and that's the habit for me. I always use Control S. But of course, if you turn it on to save, then that should be fine. But if you want, just to be sure, then you can use Control S. At least I feel more safe. Yeah, I feel safer if I use Control S. Yes, so that's the question from Owen. So that mono works, but MCS, you mean mono command works, but MCS not. Maybe you can check the. So that's for Owen. Maybe you can check the homework help chat. There was the discussions about it. Maybe you can find it, find something for yourself. Maybe, yeah. So that's for Owen, because again we had this discussion in not only I, but also the girls. So there was the discussion in homework help, and maybe you can find the answer here. And maybe if not, then maybe please contact me after the session or tomorrow as well, and contact me. Then we can check it. Yeah, also from Mona's like debug. No, the debug is a different thing. Debug means that maybe I will later explain you what the debugging means, but the debug is not quite related to the executing and compiling of the classes. No. Debug means that that's, I mean, for now maybe it's a little bit hard for you to explain, but the debug is used to go through your code once it is executed. Yeah. So we will later on we'll talk about the debugging, but just for you as for the beginners, the explanation would be that this is the tool. Yeah, this is the executable mode of the program, where you can execute your program and you can go step by step of the execution. Like in this case, we have one command, but for debugging, that would be that it has the first command, so you can stop here, see how this command is executed, then you can say to the program, okay, let's go to the next line and execute the next line. But I will explain you a little bit later. So debugging means that you run the program in the mode where you can actually go step by step and see what happens during the execution of the program. But we'll talk a little bit later about the debugging. So for now, you simply run the programs, you compile them, and it's not related to debugging. Mono simply helps you to run them, to run the program, to run the executable. So otherwise, yeah, that's the question also from Anastasia. What exactly Mono does? It actually runs the program, because if you simply, I guess you can simply type this way. So this way it doesn't do anything, yeah, because so you cannot simply run the program, yeah. But yeah, so it cannot be just simply done by if you press this executable, even if you press it directly from here. So you can also try. You'll see that you'll just simply have this open window and then this will be closed. Yeah. So Mono is needed to actually to execute this the C# program. So that is why Mono needed. MCS needs to compile the program, so it will generate your executable file, which then you can execute, and Mono actually executes this generated file. Yeah. So, and as it stated here, you can play around. And at this point, I will also show you another really important shortcut. And so first of all, so here I do control, so I copy paste it. And what I see here, now I can see that the program is not formatted correctly. And this is what's really important in real programming life, is that the code you write, it is formatted well. And in all the environments, it is mandatory thing, because as you may notice, so this is not the format we can leave in our code. We should not do it this way. Yeah? So that's not how the program should look like. It should be formatted well, like we previously had, that we have enough spaces here, we have enough spaces here, here, and here. So it's important, it's needed just to quickly see the program, because otherwise, if we have this program, then this will be quite complicated to actually understand where's the start of the section, where's the end of the section, because if we have the start of the section, that everything what is inside this section, I mean this part, this will always be formatted with the spaces from the left side. Yeah, because again, maybe for this program it's not quite complicated to see, but if we have large programs with a lot of code, then it's in these cases that would be more complicated to understand the code without the formatting. And to actually format the code, there is another shortcut. It's maybe different in different IDEs, but for Visual Studio Code, it's Alt plus Shift plus F. So that's Alt plus Shift plus F. So you simply need to type your cursor, and then it will automatically be formatted. For you, this may not work, and this is fine. So for your case, it will suggest you to install C# formatter. Yeah, because by default, Visual Studio Code does not have the formatter. Let me also type the comment be code formatter. Yeah, by default, it's not installed in Visual Studio Code. You need to install it as an extension, and it will advise you to download code formatter for C#. There will be several options. I guess moment. Yeah, you'll see several options there, and yes, you can download some of them. So it's fine if you download some of them, and then once you downloaded the right one, then once you press, so like in this case that was this way, once you press Alt Shift F, then the code will be formatted. And so please check it out and also apply it for your code, and for the future, once you submit your assignments, please be sure that your code is formatted, because it will be just easier for me to read the code. And I guess you can agree that this code is more readable than yeah. So there is suggest from Elina, prettier code formatter. I guess that should be okay. Yeah. So again, you can try several options, but so after you install the formatter, try it using Alt Shift F, and if it formats the code correct way, if you format the code this way, then you installed the right format. So you have to be sure. To be honest, I'm not really sure which format is the right one, but you can try several, and once it works fine, then you can keep it. But I guess almost all the formatters should normally work. The same is for other methods. If you write in JavaScript, if you write in Java or C++ or any other language, you will have the formatters, and they may also be called beautifiers. And then you can install them, and then you will be able to format your code. And what we see here, so here we have multiple commands. So again, I use right one. Maybe first let's try to compile and execute this class. So as previously, I'll use MCS, my first class.cs. So now I'll compile. So again, MCS, I compile, and mono, I execute it. Maybe we can copy paste it, it will be faster. XTL. So what happens here? At this point, I have /n. /n means that I will go to the next line. So we can see that we have one line skipped. So that is what /n does. And it says that I want to go to the next line. And this is what happens. We have one line break, and we go to the next line. And so here, this part is executed. Then we are here. So then we can run console read line. This will actually read the content from the line. And this is what we write here. Right here, it reads the content from this line, and it so using var, yeah, we'll later talk about the variables, how to define them, but using var in C# we can define the variable, and then we can pass the value to this variable. So after this line is executed, so we'll provide the value, and the value of name will be just my name ampersand. It will be here, it will be stored here, and after that we can actually do the concatenation of the components into one text. And this one happens here again. I use so here we need to use $sign to concatenate multiple objects, and then I have this /n again. I go to new line, then we include name. So we have hello, we include name. This is what happens here. Then date, so that's the variable, which is generated from the date, and then it takes t, which is date format, and then it takes t, and this is time. Yeah, so date d, that's the date, and t, that's the time. And the next thing is that the command. So the next command is which prints again new line as before, and press any key to exit. This is what happens here, and this is the last command what we have here. This means that actually the program will wait until we press any key. Yeah, otherwise, yeah, we can. So at this point we press any key, and the program will finish its execution. If we don't press this one, then I guess you may. So do you have any guesses what will happen when we comment this line of code? Again, yeah, the comments will be control slash. So you select the line, and then we have not talked about the comments, but we'll talk about the comments a little bit later. It actually means that if we delete this line, this will be the same. So maybe for now this will be Ctrl L, this will be comment the line. So do you have any guesses what will happen now? So you can type your guesses in the Discord. By this time I will so meanwhile I will compile the program first class.cs. So any guesses? Yep. So maybe I will start with this one. And so I'll press it. Maybe you can. And we'll see the result. What will happen? Maybe also try it on your computer. You can also try it. Okay, I see that's almost, I think. Maybe let's wait and we'll see what happens there. Okay, yes, we can press, and basically what happens that the program basically did not now the program does not, nothing will happen. We'll just text it. Yeah, nothing will happen. Yeah, that's true. Nothing will happen. I mean, we will simply, the program will not wait until we press the key. And that's it. So using read key, it simply waits until we type any key. So that is how we can play around. We can execute multiple commands. We'll talk about the commands a little bit later, but so you can try to type some things here, then compile and execute the class. I guess that was it for this program. If you have any questions, please let me know. And yeah, maybe if you have any issues with Mono, so first of all you need to check if you have Mono installed. So you should. So I will open this. So first of all, please check that you have, if you have any issues with Mono or .NET commands, then the first step would be that you should, hold on. So you should, first we check if you have .NET installed here. So you should have .NET installed and you should have Mono installed. So that's the first check. What you need to do, yeah, of course you need to go to begin and check, maybe you can also check if you have Mono command here, and Mono XCA command and MCS and MCSVAT files here. And the second step, what I said, is that you also need to add a system environment variables, otherwise the system will not see these commands. So we'll go to pass. So you have pass, and you should have the path to the, sorry, this one, and the path to .NET, and the path to MonoBeam folder. And after that, everything should work correctly. Okay. So if you have any questions, please let me know. And for now, as I promised, we will have the breaks during our sessions. So let's maybe have 10 minutes break now. And you can also prepare any questions if you have such. let's continue. Yeah, so there's the question, yeah, maybe about the homework. About homework. Will I will reply maybe a little bit later. But the question for me about GTK, I guess, yeah, I guess for now we don't really need it. Yeah, if it works without it, yeah, I guess we don't really need it. I guess there shouldn't be any issues if we don't use it. That's mostly used for graphical tools, and for now I guess it's not needed. Maybe later on we will need it, but I guess not really for now. So for now, we can skip using it. I mean, GTK. Okay, so then let's move with the presentation, and now we start talking about the programming in general. And also about programming using C#. So we'll talk about the programming in general, then about C#, .NET Platform, Visual Studio a little bit, and also take a look on C# program. So let's start. Yeah, first of all, let's start with programming in general. What is it? So basically, in computer programming, that's the process which helps you design and build the executable programs. Computer programs, so you can simply run them and they will complete some specific tasks. So basically, in general, we say that the program executes the algorithm. So we have the algorithm which says the program to complete this and this step using this and this resources. And in general, we can say that programming, that's the activity that produces computer programs, and it gives a series of instructions to a computer. So in this case, we can also name it as the algorithm. So it means that we have the set of commands like I wake up, I take my breakfast, I go to the bus stop, then I go to work and do some stuff there, and so on and so on. And so basically provide the commands which needed to be executed, in this case by a computer or maybe some similar environment. So what is programming in general? What are the parts of the programming? So we have, in fact, most of them. In theory, we have even more. It depends on the environment we work with. For us, at this introduction course, in this beginning course, we will work with basic things only. And first of all, I guess we should start with the I mean, they all are important, but I guess for as the base, we should understand, we should take a look on the algorithms and data structures, because again, as I said, the algorithms, the definition of the algorithms mean the concept of the program we use, and the concept also the style, the steps of the program which it will use. So in fact, if you know the algorithm, so you almost, say, completed the half of the development of your program. So it means that you already know what I need to achieve, how I need to achieve what I want to achieve, and so the remaining part will be just to implement that using the tools available for your programming language and also for your environment you work in. And also the data structures that is needed to actually for the resources your program uses. So the program will use some kind of data, the variables, and of course this all has specific structure. So each different component of your algorithm will have its own structure, and this is what we call data structures. Yeah, and then there are also some other parts, and the syntax. And so each different programming language have their own syntaxes and their own. Also, the concepts are maybe pretty much different to different programming languages, but of course, the first thing is syntax, same as in all the languages. So to write something, we need to know the alphabet, we need to know the words to write, and then we also need to know the combinations, how we can combine the words from the particular language. And the same as with programming. Yeah, we should know the we'll later talk about keywords and components of the programming language and how to combine them to then create our program. The libraries, we'll talk a little bit later about group work, so how you work in groups to create your program, create your software maybe as well. Hardware, of course, that's the place where we develop and where we execute the program. So the experience, what you should have to write the correct program. And then architecture and design, this is actually closely related to the definition of the algorithm. So you should design your algorithm to then be able to write the code. Yeah. So then, why would you learn to program from the programmer's viewpoint? First of all, to you can say play God, create something out of the void. Be creative. You can solve your program. You can solve your problem to using some kind of different methods, because in programming you can achieve same result using so many different paths, so many different solutions. Yeah. So in the programming, there's almost impossible that for your exact problem there will be only one solution. In general, there will be many options for the solution to achieve. That's why it's really creative area. Of course, be smart. Yeah, so since again, as you understand, you have the program, it uses the hardware, it uses some kind of resources, and of course we should think about not use the resources we don't really need to use, to not spend more resources than we actually need to spend. And also be lazy. That's also maybe quite important, because sometimes people like to do some kind of, maybe call them monkey jobs. It means that simply do the things which can actually be automatized by the program, and that's why we say that programmers should be lazy. Because programmers should simply ask the program to do the actions which could in theory be done by people, but it takes less time, of course, if it's done by computer. And yeah, behind every new product lies an innovative and creative process of development and production. So that's already mentioned. That's quite creative environment, and you should be creative when you write the program. So maybe let's move on. Yeah, of course, you can also express an idea. You know the tools you need to implement the algorithm. You can see the limits. Think computational. Play around with different technologies. Play around with different methods of programming, and do what you plan and write in the program. And as Steve Jobs said once, everybody should learn how to program a computer because it teaches you how to think. This is, I would say, quite similar what people talk about math, about mathematics in general. That it helps people understand how to think. Maybe that's maybe true, because for the program we actually have structured way of thinking. So the program should have structured way of thinking. How to so what are the? So it means that we have the goal to achieve, and for to achieve this goal, we should complete this and this step to achieve the correct result. And now let's move on to the basic terms I will use, and you will most likely see during your journey in programming. So first of all, just the programming language itself. So as the same as all the languages, that's the set of, I would say, set of different words, set of different characters, which actually are considered as instructions to be used by the program, and this needs to implement basically implement the algorithms and create computer programs. So we provide the instructions using the programming language, and there are lots of programming languages, maybe for the and in fact, as I already said before, it's maybe not so important which language you write, because in almost all the languages, but in most languages you can achieve the same results, maybe using different approaches, but you can achieve same results. Then we go to computer program. That's basically what we see today. We see the programming language. That's the language we use to write a program. And then we have computer program. This is actually what we can execute. In this case, the program would be this one, and it works independently from the C# file. Click here. Then we go to algorithm. This is step-by-step procedure. So that means that this is actually this is also the set of commands, but conceptual commands, we can say. And so basically we transfer the algorithm into the programming language. Then this one is transferred into computer program. The source code. That's also quite important term, and this is basically the code of the program. And so how the actual code of the program looks like. So in this case, what we see today, the source code of this executable program is this content. And so this is the source code of this program. And in fact, this is actually the program code. The command, that's actually directed to a computer program to perform a specific tasks. So it's quite simple. We say computer do this, computer do that. That's the actual command. In this case, we had computer please. Actually, maybe that's not so correct to say computer, but just in overall we can say that, okay, computer please read us the line from console. Please read key, please write something, and so on. So that's the command. What we ask computer to do, and the next term is quite interesting. When you work with different programming environments, you will definitely face this term. It's called API. To be honest, I usually forget the actual name of API because I always just say API, and I always heard just API, and sometimes I forgot that that's application programming interface. Most likely you will just simply her API, and that's you will heard frequently, quite frequently, because yeah, as it states from here, a specification of possible interaction with a software component. Yeah, so just maybe to use easy words, that would be that you have different say places in the different places. Yeah, so have one place where there is you can have actually one environment, or you can also have multiple environments. And using APIs, you can actually establish the connection between between two environments, between two different places in your environment. Yeah, we can actually consider this as one environment. We can also say something about sub-environments. So we have two different, we can call them components, maybe two different, maybe also programs in some cases, but in general this would be two different components of some largest environment, a software environment. And API is actually the tool. Yeah, that's not something, it's interface, so that's the tool. That's not something like the command or something, that's the tool. Yeah, it can be different in different environments, but we call it API, and this simply helps us to connect, establish the connection between two environments. The compilation. Today we talked about NCS, and that's the compiler. Yeah. But the compilation itself means that it let's see, just by definition, to be a process the computer takes to convert a human readable programming language into the machine language. Actually, yeah, that's quite straightforward. We have the language, we have the source code we write using the particular language, like in this case that was C#, and that's C# we write. And then using the compiler, it translates the source code into another file. It can be the file, it can also be simply text or something like that, which then is understandable by the computer, by the machine will execute your code on. And so there's there's this language called assembly. We will not talk in details about it, but that's actually we can call it as the core of the programming languages, which is then simply understood by the computers itself. And yeah, usually it's binary code, so it means that it transfers this code into the binary code, which is one, or which has only zeros and ones. Maybe we can quickly take a look on how this executable file looks like. Guess we cannot. Oh yeah, we can. Maybe if we can open it using Notepad++. Yes, we can do it. Yeah, so we can see this kind of not really understandable code, but this is what the actual computer understands. You know. So that's the source of the executable file, and this is basically how the compiled program looks like. And the compiler, that's the tool. That's the we can simply say that that's the tool which actually provides this translation. Yeah, and yeah, one more thing: if you made a mistake in your code, then of course the compiler will not understand what do you mean. So if you write your code incorrectly, then there will be compilation error, and the code will not be compiled. Like in this case, if I type something incorrectly, so that's not not how the program should look like, because this is not the part of the programming language. This is not. This is incorrect syntax. We have the error here. So, and if I try to compile the file now, then it won't be compiled. And so we can see that there is compilation error, and the program will not be compiled because the program is incorrect here. I have the element which cannot be the part of this code. Basically, source code is incorrect, and that's why the program will not compile. Then we have interpreter, and that's basically a computer program which converts each high-level program statement into the machine code. Yeah, so in simple words, we can say that that's actually what we write, and then it's then makes it readable. Readable for us. So when we write the program here, then we can see we can basically distinguish some pieces of the program. So for example, we have texts. We can see that the text is colored in, it's not red, it's some kind of orange, or it's really specialist in colors, and let's say that that's red. So we can see that the text is highlighted in red, then the class name is highlighted in green, and so on. So that is what we say, and debugger again. So that's, as I already mentioned today, that's the tool which helps us to see more precisely how the program is executed. It can help us going step by step inside the program, execution of the program, and to detect the errors, and or also to see the behavior of the program which is executed. We'll talk about the debugger a little bit later. We'll also debug the code, but this will be a little bit later. And basically, what are the differences between the compiler and the interpreter? This may be unclear for you. And yeah, basically the idea is the compiler itself, it converts the code into machine code, but the interpreter directly executes the instructions, and then it helps us to detect the errors. For example, in this case we don't, like, if I type something here, then in this case compiler is not used, only interpreter is used. And so at this point it shows us that we have the error, but again, nothing is compiled in this case, and we don't try to compile. So simply the program itself helps us, not the program, but the IDE. Of course, in fact, we can also write the code in Notepad++, or in Notepad, as simple text. So for example, this will look this way. Maybe I can simply show you. So can create the text file here. So that would be test my code. So I create C# file. Here I can edit it as text as an option. So I have this notepad here. Maybe let's change the. I guess that should be fine as well. So then I simply use cmd command prompt. I navigate here. Oh, hold on, need to use cd, change directory. So then from here I can try to compile code. Yeah, the code is compiled now, and I can also execute it from here. So in fact, if you want, you can also write your code. Yeah, so now this program is executed. Yeah, so in fact, you can also write your code simply in Notepad, or you can use any text editor. Yeah. So we have this code here. This is the source code. You can, but of course, this is not quite comfortable for us because we just see the text. We don't see the differences between the part of code. We cannot use the formatter or something like that. And of course, that's not the way we usually proceed. Yeah. And that's why we use, in this case, we use Visual Studio Code. Yeah, it helps us to read and also try the code. So yeah, and basically the idea of programming from a man to a machine. Yeah? So basically the idea is then translated, is written in the way it can be understood by the machine, by the computer. And this is the way how we actually help computers to understand what do we actually want. Yeah, and basically how it usually happens, the idea using the experience of creativity, the idea comes to the algorithm, we have the program, so this is the program, and then using the compiler, the program is compiled and then it is executed by the machine, by the computer. Yeah, basically where to start? Express an idea. So first of all, you have thoughts or ideas have to be expressed, and then you need to write them in language. It's the same as outside of the programming. We just simply can to express your thoughts and ideas. Of course, you can talk, you can speak, but in case of the programming, in case of computers will not understand you, and that's why you need to write the code, and then computers will understand you. Then the idea should be analyzed, and then you put the detailed description of your idea. And then you find the way to solve your problem. Then you describe step by step solution what needs to be done. You design the algorithm after that, and at the end, you make sure that the algorithm actually works as expected, that it solves the problem, and then you verify if everything is fine. And yeah, in general, what algorithm is after all. Yeah, I remember also when I started programming, then the first discussion was about the algorithms in general. Yeah, and the teacher asked everyone what the algorithm is after all. And that's just, in fact, that's the description of a way from a problem to its solution. So basically, that's the sequence of the actions to basically, yeah, that's the sequence of the actions to achieve the result. That's what I actually answered to the teacher at that time. I still remember this answer. And yeah, so you need to achieve the result, and basically describe step by step what you need to achieve. And so I remember the computer is stupid. Maybe that's not actually true. Sometimes it's not stupid, but of course, if you consider the computer as a stupid thing, then of course you should understand that you should precisely describe what you need to achieve. Otherwise, of course, the computer will not understand what you want. Yeah. And yeah, the same like a recipe. For example, baking a cake. Of course, you have all the steps to complete to bake the cake. Sometimes there can also be communication problems. For example, because the computers do not understand the actual language. Yeah, that's why we use the programming language. And so that would be the solution, and yeah, basically, what's the solution? So first of all, again, what we write here, of course, you should understand that this is not as easy as computer simply understands everything what is written here. Yeah, of course, Rust, its language looks quite weird. We have the English word usings, then English word namespace, English word class, and all these words for us are pretty much clear. Yeah, what do they mean? But for computer, of course, as you may understand, it's just a set of characters and the sequence of characters, and that's it. In computer, there's nothing more. And of course, in this case, as it's written here, the solution is that we write. What happens? We write the code this way, using the words we understand, and then using the compiler, it's translated to more advanced and more unclear language for us, for humans, and it is executed by program or by computer. Yeah, and maybe let's move on to the programming languages. In the order of what's of programming languages, there are maybe in this case it's said there are 700 plus, but of course maybe there's no such unique number we know to describe how many languages there are lots of, and there is no actual need to count them. And yeah, in fact, sometimes I hear from people what's the best programming language. Sometimes people ask what's the best programming language to start. Maybe the second question is more relevant. The first one is not relevant at all, because there's no best or worst programming languages, that's for sure. And so different programming languages are used for different environments. Like just maybe in overall, I can say, for example, JavaScript is used for the web development. So if you work with web pages, then you need to describe the actions, the behavior of what you see for the web pages. In this case, JavaScript is used, for example, and then for the backend, I mean, which is the languages which are needed to work with the data. So then it can be, for example, C# as well, Java, PHP, and so many other different languages. So for Android development, there may be Java, or there are some other Java-related languages. So there are different actual needs for the programming languages, and there can be different, and in different environment you will see different programming languages, and that's why we cannot really say that one language is better than another. And so they all are used for to achieve different goals and inside different environments. But yeah, C# in general is a great choice. It's also a great choice for the beginners. Yeah, if we say which language is best for the beginners, then there's actually also no really difference between them, because for the beginners, it's the most important thing is to understand the main concepts of the programming in general. And in this case, you may maybe already heard about Java, C++, there is also Python. Yeah, you also heard about Python. But yeah, in fact, Python is maybe a little bit different language if we take a look on such languages like C#, Java, or C++. But maybe from my opinion, I would say that C# or Java are maybe best first languages, yeah. But of course, if you start with other languages, then that should also be fine. there's not much difference. But again, it depends where you want to work, on which field. Yeah. Of course, all the languages have the syntax and semantics. For example, you should have the correct order of words, and semantics would be the meaning of the corresponding statements, like for example in this case. So you cannot, so we have this BR, but of course you cannot change the sequence, you cannot do it this way. This will be incorrect, because the language itself, it should have, when we write the exact language, then we should have you should use the right sequence. And yeah, at the end it should be translated to machine code, then executed. And also there's such thing libraries. We'll talk about the libraries a little bit later, but in general this is the also kind of, if we consider them as the simple libraries what we have in real life. So that's the place where we have books, and from the programming perspective, libraries are the sets of not books but of the pieces of programming codes. So actually, as the easiest explanation would be that that's the simple set of library. That's the set of the pieces of programming code. Usually these are the classes, but maybe some different structure, which then can be used in other codes, in other programming codes. For example, I create a library with class A, class B. Then I can, in theory, use this. So if I connect this library correctly, then I can use class A, class B inside my code. That's the option that would be. Yeah. So then we should make the communication work. So first we have some language-specific components and then system-specific components. First we have this text editor. Then this can be Notepad, this can also be Visual Studio Code, basically the place where we can write text. And basically everything starts from the text. Since we need to write it, then we have the source files, then we have compiler, which compiles what we've written at this point, and then machine code actually. Then it is compiled code is translated. It translates the simple language to the actual machine code, and then at the end we can use some kind of external libraries. And then we'll have this code, and at the end we can also execute it. Yeah, so also about the basic terms, I already mentioned library, I mentioned it before, and linker, that's actually the program used using compiler to link the libraries, the pieces of the same pieces of different programming components to the actual executable program. And now let's, so if you have any questions about the programming in general, please let me know, but I hope there's just a theory in this case. We don't have much practical, so just for you to basically understand the main concepts. Of course, you should not memorize them all. In fact, in practice, you will actually need to write the code and then to be able to execute it, and also to use the environment you are working in. But yeah, okay. Now let's move to C# programming language in general. Basically, what is C#? So that's not C# obviously. It's object-oriented programming language, and I would say that this part is quite interesting, because when you read something about different language, then programming languages, then sometimes you will see such definition, yeah, object-oriented programming language. And you will see this for all the main languages, all the most popular languages. And this is just because the concept is based on the object-oriented approach, and we'll talk about objects a little bit later in this course. But yeah, the key point is that most of them popular programming languages are object-oriented now. And C# is a simple, modern, type-safe programming language. That's also true. It's so as you see C, and in fact you may already notice that there are such programming languages like C, C++, and C#. That's because, of course, C#, C++, it's not derivative. Yeah, it's kind of derivative from C, but maybe more advanced. From some point of view, more advanced version of C language. And C# is, I'd say, quite different language from C++, which of course inherited some features, but let's say most of the features of C++. But actually, it's maybe a little bit, but it's more simple than C++, and I would say that C# is more similar maybe to Java than to C++. But if you work with Java, then if you work with Java or if you work with C++, then it will be quite easy to also move to C# as well. So, and about type safe, but that's, I would say, that's closely that's about data types mostly. Yeah, since we haven't really talked about data types now, maybe you'll understand it a little bit later. Actually, most of the languages now are type safe. This means that actually we have different types of variables, and we'll talk about types a little bit later. But in general, you may now understand that we have texts, right? We have texts, we have numbers, we have characters, and we have other types as well. And basically, type safe means that we actually do not confront between the types actually, and we actually we don't have any conflicts between the types inside the language when we work with different types there. But yeah, we will talk about type safety a little bit later. Yeah, basically it means that we don't have any typed errors. But again, we'll take that later. We'll start talking about types, data types, C++, C#. Sorry, and about the first version of C# was released in 2002. So it's, in fact, I would say it's pretty much young programming language, because if you take a look on C language or C++ or Java, these languages were introduced in the last century. So that's not comparing to C#. It's a relatively young language compared to other languages, but so from this point it was developed taking into account some some features which maybe some issues which present in such languages like C++ and Java. So in C#, there are some advantages of C#, and maybe because it was developed later than C++ and Java, it took into account more the things of C++ and Java which we are not so comfortable for programmers, and we will take a look on some of them a little bit later in this course. And basically, why do we actually learn C# now? Where is it actually used? And you will mostly see the word applications, and that's the tool. So for desktop applications, so for such applications like what we have in our computer, they usually are called desktop applications. Mobile applications, what we have in our smartphones. Web applications, the web applications is quite similar to websites, but basically we can consider web applications as desktop applications which we can run on our browser. Yeah, that would be the most simple explanation, but we'll talk about web applications a little bit later. But also the games we can develop within C#, different things, database applications, and more and more. Yeah, why C#? Why C#? It's safe, and nullable and non-nullable reference types help you write safe code. And so that's, again, it's type safe, as I mentioned before. So we won't have any specific type errors. It's quite modern, in 2002 developed, it was introduced in 2002, so second said, it's quite modern language. Also lots of updates come, so it's becoming even more and more modern, and yes, productive. You don't need to write a lot of code to achieve the results you want. Yeah, that's designed for common language infrastructure, which consists of the executable and runtime environment. Executable and runtime environment that simply allows the use of various high-level languages on different computer platforms and architectures. Yeah, basically, as I said, it's also compatible with some other different platforms, different environments where it can be used. We will see it a little bit later in our course, and has some advantages comparing to other languages. As I said, object-oriented programming, which basically the must-have thing in most of the for most of the languages. Automatic garbage collection. That's about the things which are not really used not used, but actually once we use some kind of variables, some kind of actually we can say resources. Then once the resource is not needed anymore, it should be destroyed to not fill the memory, not fill our program. And in some programming languages, like in C++, we should take care about it, but in C# it happens automatically. We'll talk about garbage collection a little bit later, but that's a bit different with the advantage of C#. Cross-platform can be used in different platform, backward compatibility, and yeah, also better integrity and interoperability in general. That's quite a modern language, can be used. And yeah, also about in terms of C# language, so also of the language itself, the runtime, that's the actual time when, period, as it said here, when the program is executed. Yeah, so that's the start of the program, So that's the period between the start and the end of the program. We usually call it runtime, and sometimes you may see such things like, for example, runtime error. This is the error that happened during the execution of the program. There is also such interesting thing called runtime library, and this is the actually you can call routines, you can call components, random components used by compiler to involve some of the behaviors of a runtime environment. So it inserts the calls to the runtime library into the exactly compiled executable binary call. Okay, so it means that the program is actually compiled, but during the runtime environment, some more libraries are inserted and used. And yeah, runtime environment RT, that's the actual environment in which the program or the application can actually be executed. Yeah, so that's the place in general. Yeah, usually we call it as the hardware and software. Actually, the mix of hardware and software to be used to actually run the program. And for some different programs, for some different programming components, different components, there should be a special environment where the program can be executed. Yeah, for example, for Java, you need to have Java runtime environment. For .NET, again, it's pretty much more easier. It's pretty much easier because, but yeah, again, you need to have .NET installed to be able to actually run your program. But yeah, that's about the basic terms, and maybe let's have 10 minutes break now, and then we will have the introduction to .NET Part 4. Now let's have 10 minutes break. Okay, let's continue. So now we will talk about .NET platform in general. So basically, first of all, what is .NET platform? Of course, as I said, we cannot just simply have the programming language. We should have the environment where to develop and where to execute it, right? So so for this for this purpose, we can use .NET platform as one of the options here. Use .NET platform, and so that's actually the platform where we can develop our applications. So first of all, it is free, and it's possible across platform, and it's open source. And yeah, sometimes you will see such things like open source, and this may be really important for different programs, for different environments, because not everything is open source. Yeah, open source means that the code is actually we can say it. The code is open and it is available for everyone. We should not have the license or pay for it. Yeah, general purpose platform that enables all kind of scenarios. Yeah, with .NET we can use multiple programming languages, editors and libraries to actually build our web application, mobile application, desktop application, and so on. And so that's the actual tool which helps us to develop what we want. In general, this will look this way, and so we have the editors, and it can be Visual Studio Code, then the editor, and we have this .NET platform, which actually helps us to produce the right application, the right program to one of the environments. Let's see. Wow. Yeah, so .NET Unified Platform. Yeah, so that this is more marked since 10th of November, because before that that was quite different. Yeah, so that's why we should always have this remark, and that's that's Unified Platform. So we can see the environments where we can actually execute our programs, and then using .NET we actually can develop them, of course, using the tools where we can actually write the codes and write the code which then produces the application. That's the complex platform. So in the previous state, it had three. Before, yeah, that's what I said before. 10th of November, it had 3 runtimes, which it provides. Yeah. So .NET framework in general. We'll talk about frameworks a little bit later. That was not open source, and this is what I said. It was closed source and for Windows only. Then the component is Mono. That's an open source. It was an open source, which supported supporting variety of operating systems, not only the main systems we use for our computers, but also Xbox, PlayStation, Android. And then there was .NET Core, which is actually an open source, but supporting Linux and macOS and Windows as well. But that was rather new runtime compared to the .NET framework or Mono framework developed before. And this basically means that only a few programs are written for this, and it's in general usage of .NET Core is still low. And in fact, this made C# programming language platform dependent in the sense of the runtime dependent. So basically, using this platform, it actually means that only C# we can only use it on this .NET platform. And yeah, so the differences between the framework and platform. These terms are quite, I would say, quite similar in terms of usage. Basically, if we say framework, then it means that this is uh, some kind of actually it's a set of concepts, libraries, tools, and practices. In fact, we can say that let's say we have some kind of environment. Then we can use then we actually take framework, which helps us. So that's the set of components we can apply to our environment, and we can simply use it. So, and in programming, in development, you will frequently heard the term framework, and there are lots of different frameworks used for lots of different environments, and this is actually sometimes it's maybe considered as the extension. And so you have the environment which works for you, and you can also add something new and use it after that. And on the other hand, it can also be the base for your environment. So you have the framework, and based on one particular framework, you can actually develop your solution. And in general, all this set provides us a standard. It provides standardized component concept which can be used for the platform, and it also can be used as a connector technology. So we connect some different components to actually support communication between different components in the platform, and also to preserve anonymity of individual components. But yeah, so basically to integrate some kind of components into the platform. And the platform in general, as it stands from the name, it's the base where we actually develop, where we actually also execute. And in fact, that's the collection of reusable components which have been constructed in compliance with the principles and philosophy of the framework. So platform is maybe more general thing, but the framework is what we can actually apply and use that. And yeah, what's the difference between .NET platform and .NET framework in general? Because again, as I said, you will often heard these terms, and sometimes it's maybe confusing. And in fact, yeah, .NET Core is a platform, and you heard that .NET Core is a platform, and you read some of that, and you read .NET Core is cross-platform. And basically, after November last year, it's simply named to .NET. Next, you'll learn that .NET is a framework, and it doesn't help that framework is part of the name of the original .NET framework. Yeah, so again, in this case, it's maybe a little bit confusing because we say .NET, and we actually use it for many different components there. In fact, .NET is a development platform, and it should not be confused with hardware or operating system platforms. Yeah, so at lower level, so when the application targets .NET, it's not only choosing the libraries, but also that's runtime and compiler itself. Then .NET Core framework, Mono, and also Xamarin. So these all were used in one unified .NET. They are all about platforms and frameworks in general. And the platform part refers to the runtime and compiler, while the framework itself, that's the code library. So again, as I said, platform is something, it's more general thing. It basically has all the parts we need to build the program, but the framework is just we can also say the package in some way, the package which helps us to construct this particular platform. And yeah, so in general, just to summarize, we can say that .NET as a platform which helps us to build command line applications, microservices, and modern websites. And yeah, that's open source, so it's available for everyone. No need for license. Cross-platform can be used on different platforms, like we said, on mobile phones, on computers, and yeah, it's supported by Microsoft. So .NET, as you may already know, it's developed by Microsoft. And you can find some relevant information about .NET on the Microsoft webpage. And yeah, how it works since November. So we have 3 parts. Basically, previously they were split, and right now they are all unified in one .NET platform. So that's .NET Framework, which has to run. They all have basically runtime, and the base class library that comes from .NET Framework. The core library comes from .NET Core, and also Monolith has its own library with the classes. Because otherwise, yeah, as you see here, we have some predefined class. For example, console. That's also actually the class. Yeah, that's in this case that's the object, in fact, but it also comes from the class. So this part of code, of course, this should also come from some kind of library, and because otherwise this will be, of course, the syntax. That's fine, yeah, that's C# language, but we already see some kind of date time, for example. It's a console. This should also come from somewhere, right? We cannot just simply imagine that this comes from the programming language. Of course, it's already predefined somewhere, and this, of course, comes from the classes which are a part of .NET platform. Yeah, also basic terms, software development kit. That's in fact a collection of software development tools in one stable package. So basically everything what is included in one package. Then all the tools we can use, for example, again, it can be compiler, debugger, and framework in general. And to create applications with some kind of advanced functionalities, we need to download and then use software development kit. And for .NET there's also SDK, software development kit for .NET, and using this you can cover most of modern development scenarios. And yeah, in general, why .NET? First of all, that's interactive. It's we can help you to develop some applications faster than you could do it using other languages. And that's true. It uses some generic constructions like language integrated queries. That's actually will work with it a little bit later. So in other languages you may need to use SQL. So maybe you heard about SQL before. Use it for which is needed for to connect to the database, to write the queries to the database, to fetch the data and to change the data into databases. And that's why we need to use kind of query to the database. And .NET we can use Wink. .NET is combined with extensive class libraries, APIs, to connect with some other related components. And the powerful tooling provided by the Visual Studio family, we'll maybe see a little bit later. what kind of tools that are provided, and of course that's better for the developers. And yeah, for really getting it has right on just-in-time compiler to optimize machine code. Maybe we will not talk about just-in-time compiler right now. You can take a look separately on it. That's not so important. But yeah, that's an industry-leaded chip-based runtime that is capable of every high throughput, and it also enables fast and easy programming in general. Yeah, so actually you can develop any app on any operating system platform. With .NET you can target any application type running on any platform. And of course you can reuse skills in all familiar environments. And for mobile applications, you can run them on iOS, Android, and Windows. So you can develop applications to these platforms, and also you can develop some enterprise server applications on Windows Server or Linux or something like that. And also the performance, and that's you can see the differences between something Java Servlet or .NET or Node.js. These are quite popular frameworks for Java and JavaScript. Yeah, please do not confuse, do not mix Java and JavaScript. These are two different languages, and they are quite different, I would say. But yeah, so we can see that for .NET, the performance is actually faster than for others, and it actually provides better responses and requires less computational power. Yeah, so as an example, when you open Stack Overflow, which is based on .NET, it's .NET serves 5.3 megabytes pages a day on just 9 servers. So that's quite good result, I'd say. And you can see that in some benchmark tests it's quite faster than other environments. Yeah, in general it's secure and trusted. It provides immediate security, some benefits here of the security, and we will see some of these features a little bit later. Yeah, caching services about critical issues, like for example bad pointer manipulation. We'll talk about pointers also a little bit later in this course, after the code is compiled, and after some, and also it prevents some malicious attempts to alter the compiled code. And also, yeah, if there are some issues discovered, then Microsoft quickly releases the updates. And so in general, as you may already understand, that there's a large ecosystem with different libraries, and in fact you can download more libraries used for .NET. It's easy to find correct answers for your problems when you search for them in Google or Stack Overflow. Almost everyone actually uses Stack Overflow in programming. And yeah, so open source software foundations provide protection, support, services, and best practices for helping each project to be successful. You can check this out. And so how this looks like, and so in the middle there's .NET, there's the environments or operating systems, and yeah, actually lots of different, yes, it has over 50 projects and hundreds of repos under the server chip you can take a look on it yourselves. Maybe you will not spend much time on this. Let's move on. So this is the actual journey of .NET. Again, it started at the beginning of this century. So right now you can actually see how it was updated time by time. So, and of course the plan is that the latest was the .NET version 8.0. So, oh no, sorry, that's 6.0, and so basically almost every year it's updates to a newer version. We'll maybe talk about the version updates a little bit later. So, and yeah, in general, the .NET 5, the ability of .NET 5 is the single file application, and smaller. It is for smaller container images. So there are development investments, Windows Desktop development enhancements. It supports ARM64, and maybe if you're interested in computer technologies, you may know that there are some key differences in for the hardware used, and nowadays hardware is significantly developed year by year, and some new technologies are introduced, and that's why for some programs it may be quite complicated to have to work on different, maybe also not possible to work on different hardware, but yeah, .NET is there's the ability for example ARM62 technology. So yeah, and of course continued performance improvements, and there are also some features we'll talk a little bit later about. Yeah, and some key statistics, 2 million .NET Core developers, so it's considered as the #1 most out framework, and so it's one of the top languages, and so on and so on. You can check the statistic out. Maybe let's not quite stop here. And of course, so the number of .NET developers is growing year by year, and you can check out the statistics. Of course, the future seems to be quite bright for .NET. So .NET 5 project is important in setting new direction for .NET in general. And so basically all new things to be introduced, and of course so right now, as I said, the technologies are developed, and .NET and there's plan that .NET will cover them in the future. So maybe again, the presentation is quite funky. I understand. Maybe that's not maybe quite interesting. Quite interesting to listen about the statistics. So maybe then let's quickly finish then the presentation. So we'll take a look on Visual Studio IDE. So again, we can use different IDEs. So in this course, so we started using Visual Studio Code. In fact, you can also download Visual Studio IDE. Maybe we'll not do it now, but there are so many different IDEs, and .NET Visual Studio Code is just one of the options we can use. Also Visual Studio Code, but yeah, in general IDE, I usually use this term IDE, and to be honest, the same as for APIs, I sometimes forget forget what actually is it. I just say ID, and I understand that this is the actual place where we can write the code. Okay, but actually that's integrated development environment, where we can actually read our code. And Visual Studio IDE, so that's the environment provided by Microsoft. It's more complicated. Visual Studio is more complicated than Visual Studio Code. That's why we started this Visual Studio Code, because it's quite simple environment. And in fact, on real projects, you can also work with Visual Studio Code. That's quite simple too, and not only for .NET but for other projects as well, for other platforms. So the question for Anastasia, yeah, Visual Studio Code is more complex. Again, it depends. So what about to use Accenture? Actually, it depends on the project again, because Accenture works on lots of different projects, lots of different environments, and of course in different environments there can be different IDs to use, and mostly, not only in Accenture but mostly in IT, it depends. Again, it depends on the project you work in. But sometimes you have also choice to select it by yourself. What's easier for you, you can use it, because at the end, what we need to, everyone wants the code to be ready, and it's maybe not really important where you write when you write this code. Yeah, if Visual Studio is IDE is better for you, then you can use it. There's actually no much difference. For Visual Studio Code, the advantage for Visual Studio Code is that the setup here is easier, because comparing to other IDEs that I use, for example, if I use Eclipse, as you maybe heard about Eclipse, SourceTree, IntelliJ, PHP Storm, and so on and so on. Also for Visual Studio, for me, for other IDEs than Visual Studio Code, we should set up. Yeah, the setup may look a little bit more complicated. For Visual Studio Code, the setup is, from my point of view, is quite simple. We just open it, we just open folder, and we are ready to develop. Yeah, so we're ready to develop. But I understand that for Eclipse was the least comfortable. That's maybe also true, and actually, from my experience right now, and also my colleagues as well, they escape Eclipse. Yeah, yesterday I had a funny moment on work. There was my colleague had the issue with IntelliJ, so some things could not be imported correctly there, and then I said maybe try Eclipse, and for her it was like, no, that's Eclipse, no, that was the least comfortable idea for my colleague, and she actually said that no, she does not want to use Eclipse anymore. But yeah, it depends. Actually, for me, Eclipse is a fine place, but yeah, it depends on the environment you work with. Working, yeah. And for Eclipse is quite comfortable place to work with the projects you actually create in Eclipse. And actually, it depends. Yeah, for Eclipse, there are some complicated points you need to know to use there. But for Visual Studio Code, again, the main advantage what I see here is that it's easy. Open it. You don't need to set up anything. You just need to open the folder, and you're ready to go. But again, that can be different for everyone. Yeah, also about debugging, debugging for sure. That's easier to use Visual Studio ID than Visual Studio Code, but we'll see it a little bit later. This is how Visual Studio Code looks like, and yeah, from here this is what I actually said. We can see. See here, it looks maybe a little bit more complicated than Visual Studio Code. It's again up to you, but yes, we have all these windows here. Again, on top you have all the main toolbar. For the setup, you have for the debug. You can run your code. You can also select the option to debug your code. We'll take a look on the debugger, as I said, a little bit later. So, and there's so many different tools. You can actually change the layout here as well as you want. Especially for those who use Visual Studio, you can play around and set up it as you want. Yeah, so some key facts. The current version is, should maybe, let me check now. It's maybe 2020, I guess it should be. No, double check. And the presentation is not so relevant. Moments. Yes, there should be 2000. Oh no, that's 2019. Okay, so there's no version. Haven't updated. But yeah, so again, that's the version 2019. Basically, there is not much difference between the previous version I used before for Visual Studio. It's available for both Windows and Mac for sure. And so on separate versions, Visual Studio for Mac, it has many features Windows users have, and yeah, also it's optimized for developing cross-platform and mobile apps. We'll mostly focus on Windows version, but yeah, we'll use Windows Studio a little bit later. And yeah, so there are also different versions. We can say versions of Visual Studio. That's Community, which we'll use, then Professional and Enterprise. Professional Enterprise, maybe we don't really need them now. And yeah, so what's new in Visual Studio 2019? If maybe you used the previous version, so you can check this. There's one quick code cleanup. If you need then Visual Studio Telecode, Visual Studio FileShare, maybe we'll use this FileShare. Let's see. So for now, that's some point. You can check it out by yourself a little bit later. So you can check the different workflows. And we can develop our application. So we'll use these workflows. Of course, you can develop Python-based code there, Node.js, and so on and so on. We'll take a look a little bit later on what we'll use and yeah, how to choose which Visual Studio actually to install. But yeah, so you can download them and select what you want. Yeah, it depends on what. Yeah, it depends what you want. You can play around to check different environments. For now, we installed Visual Studio Code, but if you started working on Visual Studio, that's fine as well. For now, it's maybe not so important. But yeah, what are the differences? Yeah, so Visual Studio runs on Windows, and there is a version for Mac OS. Visual Studio that's complete and heavyweight ID was best to set on Windows. That's true, and Visual Studio Code that's configurable lightweight code editor. This is what I said. That's quite that's more simple actually. And it runs on Windows, Linux, and Mac OS. So basically, in fact, that's the light version of Visual Studio. And from this point of view, that's a little bit more easy to use, but just to mix it, maybe for now I will use Visual Studio Code, and later on at some point I will also switch to Visual Studio just to show you something from there as well. And you can check most popular development environments. First one is Visual Studio Code, Notepad++, that's an interesting thing, but a little bit later I will talk about Notepad++, not now. But yeah, Visual Studio Code is most popular, and basically, yeah, this is what I said. The key thing for Visual Studio is that you just need to open folder, and let's go. Let's code, yeah. For the beginners, the problem may be that you need to install some more extensions. So you may need to download and install some extensions which are not pre-installed by default. But once you install them all, maybe Visual Studio Code is would be maybe a little bit easier to use in the future. Yeah, for web applications also Visual Studio Code, and for mobile that's Android Studio, of course, because that's the idea needed for Android Studio. Well, for Android developments, of course we will not really talk about Android development, but yeah, this is how Visual Studio Code looks like. We already seen this, and so on the left you have all the files located in the folder, and of course you can have multiple windows where you can simply write the code. And yeah, so this was the practical assignments we already done. You can check out the literature, and of course you can ask the questions. So if you have any questions, please let me know. And so we have actually 10 minutes. I'm not really sure if we will be able to start talking about Git, but I want you, maybe before the next session, again the same as for the practical assignment we had here. For Git, you will also need to do the setup, and I shared the practical task related to Git. Again, we have not talked about Git yet, but what you can do, what you can really do is that you can install Git on your computer. You can install Git because you will need to use it. I guess that should be more easy than for Mono used before, installed before. For Git, so please simply you need to, actually you can simply Google Git download, and I guess you can download it on your computer. So please download Git. You can also take a look on the presentation. You don't really need to follow all the steps from here, because we have not really talked about Git, and you may not know what Git is in general, but maybe for you that would be easy if you install Git on your computer. And so the task for you as the home task is to install Git on your computer. So maybe I will share the link. And after that, so once you install Git on your computer, you will see git GUI and git bash. I usually use git bash, and so actually this is actually the command line where we can execute git commands. I will explain you next time about Git. But yeah, you definitely need to have Git on your computer, and after the next session, during next session, I will explain you how we'll use it, and yeah, so then we'll use it during our course. Okay, do you have any more questions? No? Okay, then also until the end, maybe before the next session, so please be sure that you have Visual Studio installed, of course. You can compile and execute your C# code, your C# programs. And in case you have any questions, please let me know, then we'll try to help. Okay, so, and then meet you all on Monday, and please remember that we have the rescheduled session on Tuesday, so we have this kind of long week, 4 days in a row next time. So, but that will be for 1 week only. Alright, okay, see something is typing something. Okay, so then, then have a nice weekend all, and see you all on Monday. Thank you, and goodbye.